happy, very green Friday. Oh, man. Woo! We got a lot to talk about in today's episode. Today, we're going to be going over why the market is very much green. We got some stocks, honestly, just very much running. Palantir is up nearly 10%, or I should say it was up 10%, pulling back now to 8.37%. It's 10:48 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. SpaceX is double-digit gains for today after selling off massively. AMD was green earlier today. Now it's very much fighting, so I do want to talk a little bit about that. Want to go over my public profile for today in this video. I have not shown my public profile, I think, in the last, several videos, aka since, Monday of this week. Want to talk about pretty much where I see my stock positions going next week. Want to talk about some government data, and go ahead and grab some water, some coffee if you haven't already done so, maybe a beer, depending what time zone you're in. If you enjoy my content, I put out videos Monday through Friday and also free education content on Saturday, so stay tuned for tomorrow's education video. And let's go ahead and jump right into it. So today we ended up getting a jobs report, which is actually not very good for the U.S. economy, but it's very bullish for stocks pretty much in the foreseeable future. So, I don't know why this thing... there we go. So, employment report. Pretty much, the U.S. economy came in with negative job growth. Yeah, that's right. Negative job growth. 23,000 jobs being lost in the economy. It's very remarkable because a lot of people are looking at this and saying, hey, wait a second, the unemployment rate pretty much went down from 4.2 to 4.1, but how do we not have more people basically getting employed, and how are we essentially losing jobs in the economy? Well, I hate to really break it to a lot of people if you don't know this already. The vast majority of people in the stock market, they do know this. The unemployment rate is utterly nonsense. It literally goes to the people that are trying to get a job. What is the true unemployment rate in America? To be honest, nobody knows. I guarantee you no politician, no labor statistic analyst can really pinpoint an exact number. We want to get spiritual around here. I would say God really only knows how many people are very much unemployed in America. But if I were to take a guess on true number of the people, of the population in America actually unemployed, it would probably be greater than 10%. That might be a shell shocker for a lot of people, but yeah, it would probably be very much greater than 10% in my own personal opinion. Now, the employment report coming in negative. Negative. What does that mean? Well, it means that our economy is really not as strong as a lot of people think it is. And what that ultimately means is, well, come time in 40 days at the next FOMC meeting, the Federal Reserve meeting, we do not have one typically in August, so September is the next one. The chance of getting a rate hike, obviously, this is very much skewed in my opinion, because I don't see the Federal Reserve very much raising interest rates anytime soon. But if you were to look at this data pretty much like a couple days ago, the market was very much pricing in a 50 basis point hike. So we've gone from having a 50 basis point hike to now only having a 25% basis point hike. And in my opinion, this is probably going to move very much back over to the Federal Reserve very much holding interest rates. We go even farther out to the future. Obviously, October meeting, we have a small percentage chance of the Federal Reserve increasing interest rates by 0.5%. And if we even go further out to December, you basically see, the chances just go even further for more and more rate hikes. My prediction is that come time September, we're going to move a lot of this 41% very much over to this area where we just hold interest rates. So the market has very much priced in a lot of interest rate hikes over the last couple months here, and now the market is starting to very much outprice a lot of this stuff. Obviously, oil is below 85 bucks a barrel. Oil really needs to maintain below $85. If it can get below 70, that is really back to being bullish. Not to mention things in the Middle East, they really do have to wrap up. Hopefully they do, right? But then we can only be on the sidelines really hoping on hope, which is not really good. I'm a long-term investor in many stocks, and the one thing that I've learned about being long in companies is that being invested in a company because of hope, it's dangerous. When you invest in hope, you're gambling. A lot of people don't want to admit that, but you are gambling. Anytime that you are hoping something happens, you're gambling, which is one of the reasons why in the last 10, 11 months, I have done zero with options. I'm not looking to do any long-term options, any leaps. I'm not even thinking about opening any options like at all. The market right now is way too volatile in my opinion. And me personally, I'd rather just buy stock. Very much buy my long-term positions, add to long-term positions, add to short-term positions, and pretty much alleviate any form of like hoping. If you were to do options right now, you're very much hoping that things work out in your favor, such as if you're hoping the market goes up, well, you're hoping that inflation is going to cool. You're hoping that the data reports get a little worse. And you got to remember, we are in a backwards mentality where we need bad government data in order for the market to go up. Because bad government data means the Fed cannot raise rates. They got to look at lowering rates. That is the reality about it, people. So, if you're new to this YouTube channel, welcome once again. I keep things very real around here, and I'm also doing a public account challenge for motivation and education. This public account challenge started 2 January of this year. I'm looking to take a couple 5 figs to 6 figs in the course of 17 months. It was 18 months, and I just kept depositing way too much money because the market was selling off like crazy. In the last 10 months, I have probably bought close to $90,000 worth of stock, hard cash. I'm a retail investor, retail trader. I'm not big money, not Wall Street. My entire philosophy, I'm 38 years old, work hard, invest your money. Unfortunately, I didn't start investing until I was 31 years old. Yeah, that's right. All throughout my 20s, I worked my ass off, and I just kept all my money in checkings and savings accounts. Never really looked into investing. Wish I had, but hey, you're never ever too late to get in the market. But understand that if you're going to be playing a game such as getting in the market, getting out of the market, getting in the market, getting out of the market, you're ultimately going to lose. I've been in the market for the last 6.5 years, and my entire financials have just gone up entirely. March 2020 is when I got in. 2020, 21, I mean, you could have literally bought anything. That's pretty much what I did. 2022 was a gut check. A lot of people left the stock market. I chose to stay in. And a lot of people chose to leave the stock market last year during Liberation Day. Big mistake. A lot of people chose to leave the stock market earlier this year. Once again, big mistake. So I was buying AMD hand over fist earlier this year. I've been buying AMD since well before Liberation Day on my private account. SoFi, I bought my first SoFi share back in February of 2024. That's on my private account too. My private account for SoFi, I got an average of $7.41. 1,642 shares, not selling anywhere near. SoFi is a very, very long-term position for me. Very super long-term, such as like the next decade. And the reason being is because a generation of people are very much leaving, such as the boomers and baby boomers, which are going to force a lot of the younger generations, the millennials, Gen Z, to very much be growing in financial institutions. So I see a long-term envision around that. AMD is really fighting to get back over $500, but their earnings were amazing. It's just that people were expecting the shock and awe blowout earnings like Nvidia basically pretty much had during 23, 24. And in my opinion, it could very well still happen. And I mean, are all the big companies not still spending a tremendous amount of money? Of course they are. AMD is on a growth cycle. It's just that the street wanted something unrealistic, right? The street wanted AMD not only to triple beat, but like, you know, quadruple and so forth and so forth. That's unrealistic a little bit. But who knows what may happen in the next earnings? You got to remember that. Proud AMD shareholder I am. Robinhood is really stuck for the time being because they spent a lot of money up front for the Trump coins, Trump accounts. So whenever a company really does stuff like that, it does affect their financials for a while. Not to mention crypto is in the gutter. So therefore, Robinhood is going to be in the gutter for a little bit until we move into very much a crypto bullish cycle, in my opinion, which is going to be coming probably next year. I very much do see crypto on a rebound, which is also why I have some exposure to cryptocurrency. First time owning crypto since 2021. Very happy. If hypothetically Ethereum goes down to 900 or 1,000 by the end of this year, or let's say Bitcoin goes down to 30,000 like a lot of people think it will, I'll gladly add some more Ethereum. Maybe I'll figure out a way to actually buy a Bitcoin. Because, I mean, hey, if the Bitcoin cycle is real, crypto's definitely in for a rebound. And I've talked about the crypto cycle previously. It's basically pretty much 3 years up, 1 year down. Historically, Bitcoin goes through these very weird cycles. But understand that when Bitcoin crashes, it crashes. Oh, it does. It doesn't, it's not like an ETF. It's not like a stock with tangible assets. 80%, 70%, 50%, let's go. Bitcoin can make that crash significantly. So it's very risky. It's understand that, very risky. Palantir, I do want to talk about Palantir a little bit. So Palantir is getting a lot of momentum. And the thing about Palantir is that it needs really a risk-on environment to very much continue to go to all-time highs and to very much, like, operate at such a high evaluation. Now, back when Palantir was at all-time highs, you're talking that's about 3 earnings ago. So, obviously, we have grown into that evaluation. But the thing about it is that a lot of people are really questioning if Palantir is going to keep being able to keep up the insane growth rates that they have. And we're going to see a time period where Palantir is definitely not going to be able to grow as much. But the crazy thing about it is that instead of Palantir growing at 93% growth rates, if they grow at 80%, you gotta understand that is still friggin' insane. However, a lot of people, very nitpicking people that are probably up by whether maybe it's 1,000%, maybe it's 2,000%, they may want to take some chips off the table. Kathy Wood, this little article came out here. Kathy Wood, she is a very much trader, and she comes out as being very much an investor, but a lot of the stuff that she does is very much trades, in my opinion. And I don't really know if she's doing it because of a trade or if she's doing it because she has access, obviously, to stuff that I don't and you all probably don't too. Highly doubt someone from Wall Street is watching. Understand that when you have big people like Kathy Wood or hedge funds, their accounts are a lot more zoomed in than us. For example, Let's say you bought a handful of shares of Palantir at $7. Then you bought a handful of shares of Palantir at 25, 50, 75, 100, 150, 200, right? Well, if I want to sell my shares of Palantir, let's say if I want to sell the shares I bought at $25 on Robinhood, I believe that I would have to call them and be like, hey, I want to go ahead and sell these shares that I bought at this price. Other brokerages are a little different. I honestly don't even think I can do it on Webull. I believe the correct terminology is first in, first out, FIFO, and then there's last in, last out, LIFO. And what that basically pretty much means is that you could theoretically sell different types of shares. So I'm not really sure what level of shares Cathie Wood is really selling. The article doesn't really say. For all I know, that Cathie Wood maybe is selling shares that she bought at Palantir maybe at $10. Would that make a little sense? Sure. But the headlines are always a little deceiving, so that's why you always got to kind of really question a lot of that stuff. Meta, to be honest, I kind of really want Meta to really much go down. I'm a Meta bull. I really am. If I had to pick like a large, magnificent company, it would be Meta. Any day out of the week. Meta would be my first. My second would obviously be Google. My fourth would be Amazon. And actually, wait a second. Nope, I just completely botched that up. My first would be Meta, second Google, third Amazon. Fourth, if I really, really had to pick one, I would probably say Microsoft, to be honest. Yeah, I'd definitely go with Microsoft. Why wouldn't I pick NVIDIA? Because NVIDIA is really much at the mercy of capital expenditure spending. Obviously, Meta is already hurting on their financials, and the CapEx spending, it really can't go on forever. And then I believe Google is probably going to be the second one to cave, and then the third is going to be Amazon, and the fourth is going to be Microsoft. So, if I had to actually be buying, like, you know, the top companies, but if you've been watching my videos earlier this year, I actually had a very larger Meta position. My total cost of Meta is $2,300 on this profile. My Meta position earlier this year was actually close to about $5,000, and I've deleveraged a lot, and I was actually very happy. I was actually up by 25%, taking some small profits on Meta, and I ended up rolling that money into AMD, SoFi, Hood, a little in Palantir. So happy that I did that. And the reason I did that is because Meta earlier this year, they raised their CapEx. It's pretty much like that. ServiceNow, very bullish on this one. I'm already up by 37%. I was definitely not aggressive enough by buying it for one of the SaaS companies. Coinbase, I actually bought another share here today of Coinbase. Very bullish on Coinbase when cryptocurrency gets around, and honestly, in my opinion, Coinbase is going to be in the gutter probably for the next like quarter or maybe 2 quarters. Oh, it's going to be a while. Netflix, I'm going to be a buyer in Netflix for probably the next couple quarters. They probably honestly really won't recover, in my opinion, until maybe the end of this year. Could be totally wrong about that. Maybe I should be a little more aggressively buying Netflix here. Otherwise, if I had to sell some stock right now, what would it be and why? It would honestly be a little bit of Palantir. And I know that a lot of people may look at that answer and be like, how can you take profits on Palantir? Well, I've been in and out of Palantir since it was in the teens. And I ended up riding up Palantir all the way up. Very much once Palantir got beyond like 150, it's basically been a roller coaster ride. And I've been holding a Palantir position now pretty much with a average price of 146. Definitely DCA down from, I believe, like 157-ish. But the thing about Palantir is that it's all about the growth rates, and when that growth rates do like really stop, a lot of a lot of long-term investors, or primarily growth investors, or rather, let me go ahead and say this. If you're a growth investor, where would you rather put your money? Would you rather put your money in a stock that's going to give you a 100% return? Or would you rather put your money into a stock that's going to give you maybe a 4, 5, 600% return? Because I can go ahead and show you a handful of companies right now that have the potential of giving you potentially maybe 2, 3, 4 times on your money at a very faster rate than Palantir will. And for me to really see a double up on my position, Palantir is going to have to very much execute like over the course of, I want to say probably the next like 3 quarters significantly. But the reality about it is that Palantir is going to very much be like Nvidia, and that's because this is what companies very much do. Companies grow on a very much growth cycle. This is a growth cycle where so much gets priced in very much to earnings, and because so much is really priced into earnings, it takes the company a longer time to very much get in to those high evaluations. Now, going on the chart on the daily time frame, we're at 72 RSI, so very much a little overbought. Obviously, the MACD, moving average conversion diversion, is very much spiking up. We're very much above the 200-day moving average now. So a lot of these averages very much have to do a crossover here, where you basically see the 50-day moving average crossover to the 100, crossover to the 200. But the thing about it is that Palantir definitely does need to cool off a little bit. If we even go on a further time period to the 1 week, here's the interesting thing about Palantir on the weekly chart. On the weekly chart, we got some room to very much move up. So don't be surprised if Palantir does actually go to like 180, maybe even like 190 if the market becomes even more like very much risk on. If a lot of rate hikes get priced out of the market, Palantir could very much move higher. And to be honest, at that point, I may very well go ahead and take a little chips off the table. Just because by me getting a double up, it's going to be pretty much a little harder on Palantir than like other companies. Where would I basically put that company? Where would I put that money? Honestly, I'd probably buy some more Netflix. And like I said, there's quite a few stocks that I've been watching for a while that have very much just been beaten down. And they're very, very great companies, but very much they're small companies. They've been beaten down because of the macro environments. I'm not talking about SoFi. I'm not talking about stocks that I currently own. I'm talking about new positions here. But I mean, yeah, there are deals here left and right in the stock market. But I mean, there's nothing wrong with Palantir as a company. Understand the stock price and the company are two different things. Same thing like SoFi, phenomenal company. Stock price is not performing the way it really should. So, that's really my spiel. Where do I see stuff going? Well, if this bullish sentiment very much continues, next week, AMD could potentially maybe very much be getting to 490, maybe even 500. But the thing about the semis is the semis are in a different category. Obviously, SoFi is going to be the big runner. SoFi getting back to above 19 bucks is going to have a significant impact on my profile. Not to mention SoFi going to $20 as well too. Robinhood is another one. Palantir is definitely another one too. ServiceNow very much as well. And I mean, hey, even Netflix definitely moving very much higher. Crypto, coin, my Ethereum, Coinbase, Meta, and even AMD, I categorize that as very much kind of like cooling in a way. But otherwise, that's really much my opinion, and very much how I'm thinking, what I'm doing. I very much have positioned myself earlier this year to very much capitalize when this market turns in a snap of a finger. Very much my profiles are going to very much have that big swing to the upside. And for anyone out there that's very much invested into the same stocks as me, non-financial advice is really motivation. Stay motivated. Remember why you got into your positions. Remember that macro environments could very much change with the snap of the fingers. I don't encourage gambling. I don't encourage very much anything around hope. Do your due diligence like I have. Understand what's going on. A lot of people don't, and a lot of people get scared out of their positions. Or a lot of people make very much bad bets. People think the market's going to crash like it did on Rona, and they place all these downward bets, and it's like, oh man, yeah, that's just, it's not set up like that, very much in my opinion. All right, everyone, I'll see you all tomorrow for a brand new video, education video. Stay tuned for more content, and later.